What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Jon of Concrete. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, it's so awesome to have you here. The newest album that you have, Free Us from Existence, is absolutely kick-ass. I really enjoyed this. I just really want to know what the thought process was going into the making of this record. Was there kind of like a preconceived idea? Was there a lot of improvising? How did Free Us from Existence come to be?
It's kind of interesting. It took us a long time because we kept losing members to different things. We had a bass player who changed careers and had to get rid of his gear. We had another one who moved out west. So it was kind of just the core of myself and our vocalist Lenny and our drummer Ryan. And we just wanted to write something heavy that we like to listen to. Which includes, influences from thrash, death, and black metal. But we just wanted something that was going to be heavy, that we would bang our heads to, and that, hopefully people would enjoy. But we mostly made it for ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you were working on this material for a while. Is what we're hearing like the first initial take of these songs, or did these songs change a lot over that span of time?
I think they definitely changed a lot. Me and Ryan, who plays drums, we'd get together a lot and come up with different things, and we'd bring it back, and Lenny would say, maybe we need to add this here. And they really didn't come together quite to what they are now until probably about November. And then we just kind of settled them in. And there was a few changes once we hit the studio as well. But, from 2017, after our last record, there was kind of a lot of revision and a lot of things going into it until now. So,
Was this conceptually, did you consider this like a continuation of Everything Ends Now, or did you think that this is almost kind of like, in a way, a new start for Concrete with the member changes and everything like that?
It feels like a new start. I mean, we've definitely been getting darker and more metallic with each release. But this just feels different than anything we've done before. Even talking about what we'd like to play live, there's the debate, do we even play some of the old songs that people have liked before, but this just seemed like a new level for us. So we were pretty happy with it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you take inspiration from thrash metal, black metal, and death metal, and I see all of that in the music, but I'm just curious, are you guys influenced by hardcore at all? Because I see a lot of hardcore rawness in it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we started as a hardcore band, and I guess a lot of times that's what we end up playing. We end up playing hardcore shows. We've been touring with hardcore bands, and that's kind of it's. I grew up on New York hardcore, and it's what we started as. If you look at our first record, it was a lot more street punk, hardcore-esque, and that was really our basis for everything, and we just started adding in all of these other elements. But that's always been the foundation, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Did the changes over time for the band? Did that happen out of nowhere in a way, or was that maybe kind of like a preconceived idea? Let's go heavier, let's go darker, let's take other inspirations.
I think it just kind of changed with, what we were all listening to. I mean, we've always kind of all listened to various forms of extreme music, but, as we progress, and as I've gotten older, my tastes have changed a bit more, and it felt more like us. And Ryan's a phenomenal drummer, so, having him with his skill set, it was let's just push ourselves, see what we can do. So we all pushed ourselves on the record, and this is where it took us.
So playing hardcore matinee shows and stuff like that, have you guys become a little bit kind of like the oddball out on those bills, if you don't mind me asking?
We definitely have. We started to get a lot better receptions from metal crowds, because people don't really know what to call us. We played people who've seen us in the past, many years ago, expected, like a more hardcore punk kind of thing, and then some people call us beatdown, some people call us just straight up death metal. It's always a little weird, and it's always a little surprising to see, how people are going to react to us. But we're happy to be playing shows at all, and since that's the scene that we came up in. That's where we are a lot of times. That's where a lot of our friends are.
Yeah. Basically, like if Roger Merritt or Vinny Stigma were wearing corpse paint, that's how I would define Concrete.
I'll take that.
But what's funny is, and maybe you could lecture me on this, I had a discussion with John Campbell from Lamb of God on this topic, actually. Do you consider there to be a real difference between metal and hardcore? Because they're both very brutally honest and raw and aggressive forms of music. I never understood how a Sick of It All fan or a Cro-Mags fan can't appreciate a band like Slayer or Lamb of God or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, that extreme music is extreme music. It's heavy. The emotion is there. I think the difference comes in maybe, and I don't want to, overgeneralize or anything, but hardcore always seemed a little bit more raw, a little bit more street oriented. But when I was growing up, anything that was it was like, oh, this is a hardcore show, and it didn't matter what it was. There was no like metallic hardcore or like I mean, there was always New York hardcore and stuff like that, but I think it's, as a hardcore, as somebody who came up in the hardcore scene, I feel like I can appreciate a little bit of everything. I don't know if it goes the other way. Maybe sometimes people feel it's a little bit too brutal or simplistic, but I think that there's something to be had with every form of extreme music.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's fair to say that maybe hardcore is more about passion, and metal is a little bit more about technicalities.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think there's overlap in everything, but certainly passion, self-passion. I mean, you're going to find that in metal music as well. But subject matter. And then the music itself, what chord progressions are you using, what drum beats are you using? But there's always a lot of crossover.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't understand why they call a band like Sick of It All a crossover band. That band sounds just as hardcore as Cro-Mags or Agnostic Front or any of the classic hardcore bands.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Sick of It All is kind of, that's like, if people want to hear like a quintessential hardcore band, I think Sick of It All. I think Agnostic Front, Madball,
Yeah. Yeah, to me, my idea of a crossover hardcore band is a band like Propane or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, even like, like Marauder would push the boundaries as they got, more metal, if we want to stick on New York bands. But, yeah, I think there's a little bit of something for each thing, but for Sick of It All, man, as a crossover, I would just call them hardcore punk,
Yeah. I mean, I saw them with Napalm Death and Municipal Waste, and that felt, they turned that like, I think 500, 1,000 cap venue into like a minor little stage.
They put on a great show. They have a lot of energy. We actually got to play with them years ago. At a fest up here, and that was a pretty special experience to be able to play with legends like Sick of It All.
Definitely. Definitely. Going back to Free Us From Existence, because I've noticed that like a lot of these songs, they're all equally aggressive, and this could just be my experience or interpretation with it, but I thought that there was many different vibes. Like, I thought Path of Fire was very, like, in a way different from a song like World Tomb or Parasites. Is it fair to say that maybe, like, this is representative of many different emotions that you and Lenny and everybody were feeling at the time?
I think so. The idea was to make something that you could feel and that would hit you. And, I said this before, we've always kind of agreed that metal or extreme heavy music, we kind of feel like it's got a bit of a negative energy in a positive way, if that makes sense. but I don't like it when it's singing about happy things. Like there's an energy, there's a rawness about it that needs to be there to make it cathartic. And each song, it's a little bit different because we want to project that energy, we want to project that emotion, but we also want each song to have its own unique identity that you're like, okay, well, this is this song. A lot of times I think heavy music can all kind of bleed together. When you got it at high volumes, it's just all in your face. So we wanted to create something that was cohesive but also unique.
Yeah, and going to what you said about the negative energy thing, I think the best way to describe it is that metal kind of uses darkness as an armor rather than an anchor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a good way to put it. It's definitely there's something that draws you in about it and makes you feel good listening to it. But I also don't like it to be, just all like. A lot of the bands, they're screaming about the PMA, and that's great, but that's not for me.
Yeah. And what's funny is, too, because I feel like you address different subject matters and you have different sounds. You could do a show with a band like Sick of It All, as we mentioned before, but I almost feel like the rawness, you could tour with a band like Marduk or Incantation or any of those black or death metal bands.
We would love that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so our we love, the hardcore shows and everything. We're definitely moving in a more metal or more extreme direction. And I think just people in those other scenes seem to be a little bit more accepting of us. When we play a hardcore show, we don't usually sound like most of the other bands that are playing, which doesn't mean that we don't have the same mentality or, but it's definitely moving in a different direction. But that being said, we'll play with anyone. We're just happy to be playing, That's why we do the band is so that we can play the biggest shows we can for the most people, because that's what makes it fun,
Definitely. And you hit the nail on the head, too, with, like, the exception part. I think the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life was going to an Agnostic Front show in a Bullet for My Valentine hoodie.
Yeah, there can be a lot of judginess, but we all listen to different things, and I think it's important to listen to different things. But you'll at the same time you'll catch me at like we went to see that Behemoth tour, and we'll go out and see Slayer and Marduk and all that. But I'll also go and see Katy Perry.
Yeah,
or I love the National. That's my favorite. So I think it's good to. It's really silly when people judge people on their other bands, or that a band can be a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, that's bullshit, and it's all just a total mask or a total like it's a total like macho man thing. I showed a hardcore guy the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance, and he was just like, "Oh, this is pretty good." So
yeah.
So it's all like bullshit, and also what it is too is that it seems like you tackle many different song lengths as well, because most hardcore bands, like, their songs are not over a minute and a half long, but I mean you have a song like Apothic Mirror that's 6 minutes long. I mean, like, how do you know when a song is finished?
That's a good question. Sometimes the songs are quick. We do have our shorter songs, and they just feel like there's nothing else that we really have to say with this song. At least musically, I can't speak for Lenny with his lyrics as much, but for us writing musically, it's what have we done with this, and if we add stuff, is it going to be filler? And that's kind of I was reading a thing with an interview with Nails years ago when they put out that record, You'll Never Be One of Us, where they just cut out all the filler, all the unnecessary stuff. And, some of their songs ended up being like 30 seconds or but everything that was there needed to be there. And so for us going in different, with different styles, like Aphotic Mirror's 6 minutes long, but it felt like it all kind of needed to be there for us. And that even got moved around in the studio. You know, we had some different ideas that maybe didn't work quite as well, and luckily we had Shane Frisbee in there to say, you know, maybe we should try moving this here and doing this so it makes a little bit more sense. And it was really nice to have that outside perspective, because when you spend so long with a song, you know, sometimes you're just like, well, what if we add this? What if we add this? And sometimes it can get out of control.
Yeah, and you worked with Shane and Pete, who I know worked with Revocation, The Ghost Inside, and Bury Your Dead. I mean, they've all had to have brought a lot more ideas for Concrete, right?
It was, you know, it was a whole new experience. Not, you know, we've worked with really great engineers before, but this was new to me. I didn't actually have any one-on-one with Pete. Shane kind of sent him the drums when Ryan did them, and then, you know, I spent the day at the beach. I came back, and the drums were done. And that was Pete. But Shane was just, he had ideas, and the thing that I think was most helpful was I felt relaxed in the studio. I have really bad anxiety, and, you know, like, I can play the songs, you know, backwards with my eyes closed right now, but, you know, sometimes you worry about getting in there and just kind of freezing, and what are you going to do? But he had a really great way of relaxing you and then keeping it moving. And just, yeah, he had the different ideas, the production value. He asked questions that we've never been asked before, and it really helped us take things in a new direction. So I don't think the record would have been the same without him.
Yeah, I've always said that a producer or a mixer is the fifth Beatle, the sixth Beatle, if you're in Slipknot, the 10th Beatle. So,
yeah.
So it's always great to have that additional assistance.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just got so much history. He also knew what we were looking for, which is really hard to describe, but, like, you know, it's his studio. He lives there, you know, so you're having these nights where you're just listening to music and bonding over stuff, and you're like, I always grew up listening to this record and I loved this. Well, let's try and, you know, mix something like that, you know. And it was just a whole new experience, and I'm really happy we got to work with him.
Definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, you know, I consider you a New Yorker. I don't care. You're from Albany. You're close enough. But, you know, and as we've been hearing constant amount of times, we are New York tough, loving, smart, and whatever the fuck. That's got to be the subject matter for your next album, by the way.
Fair enough.
But I heard that there's actually a pretty awesome, like, underground hardcore scene in Albany. Like, you know, people think of New York and the metal scene here. They think that, you know, it's just one big Ozfest in the city. But, like, I heard there's a currently active metal scene in Albany as well, right?
There is. It really just kind of depends on the night. It's hit or miss, but we're really lucky to have two great promoters up here, Mike Valeni and Dan Asylum, and they work together to bring us shows that we wouldn't normally get. And sometimes kids come out in droves for them, and sometimes nobody's there. And Mike and Dan take these big risks because they want to see the bands, you know? So, like, they may put on a show where you really don't get many people for a show that should be, you know, packed. Like, Agnostic Front, you could get a whole packed-out show for them. You could get a show where, you know, only, like, 50 kids show up. And that goes for the metal, too, you know? We had Balfagor and Suffocation and Terrorizer up here, and you know, that was expected to draw a lot, and only 200 kids came out. And it's not for lack of promoting; it's just it's a weird hit or miss thing. But luckily, we have two promoters that work their asses off because they love the music here. So we get really great shows, and we have great bands up here. I mean, Mike's band, Brick by Brick, you know, if you like that old school hardcore sound.
I've seen them so many times. Oh my God,
yeah.
that band
and now
is
with
insane.
Ray, yeah. So, you know, they're up here. You know, One King Down was from here. Skinless was from here. So we've got a big mix of things right now. Downswing's kind of blowing up, and that's a whole nother style. We get some really cool stuff and a lot of cool bands, and I don't think people always realize how lucky we are.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too, because like it seems like people always take a scene, and I'm not singling out New York by any stretch of the means. I think that goes for anywhere. People take a scene for granted, and then now that no shows are happening now, they say that the scene is dead. It's like, where the hell were you when all the shows were happening? So
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's hit or miss. Sometimes we'll play a show where it's just packed out and you wouldn't expect it, and then other times we'll play a show and 20 kids will show up. But I feel like it's always gone in waves like that. It was really strong in the 90s when I started going, and then it kind of fizzled out. Then it got really big again, like in the early 2000s. Then and now it's on kind of one of those things. But it's here, and we're a college town too. But right now, I think the biggest thing is trying that inclusiveness, where people can feel like they can go and check out this stuff, without worrying about like if they're wearing a My Chemical Romance hoodie or something. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. And please, we were talking about this before we started rolling. You got to do a show in front of Governor Cuomo.
I'll work on it. I'll talk to Dan. He lives right down the street from him. So.
Oh my God, that will be the most. If you want you can make your band get tent. Everybody will come out to that show. Trust me.
Yeah. Right now, shows. If we did it outside, might work.
Yeah, if you did it outside, and make sure everybody gets a sandwich with their ticket.
There you go.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Just obviously, thanks to the virus that I'm not naming on my outlet. Is there anything you would like to promote for Concrete? Free Us From Existence is out now, and obviously, when all this is over, we'll be seeing you guys play quite a bit. Can you come to the city again when this is over, please?
Would love to. Would love to come to the city again. We're missing playing shows. Yeah, it's out on all streaming platforms. Physical copies have been delayed because of the virus, but they are coming out on Black Voodoo Records. There's going to be CD and vinyl. And in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a new video for the second track off the album, Starving Serpent, which I think came out pretty good. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing it. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Jon. Everybody, we are here with Jon of Concrete. Free Us From Existence. Be sure to check it out. It is absolutely brutal. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.